And we're going to start, Kirsten's going to start. She covered the story from 5 to 7 this morning, Morning Blend, and it has everything to do with that Fairfield family, those poor kids.
Unfortunately, this is a story that I think we've all seen before. You guys remember the Turpin family in Southern California?
Yeah.
They had this house, these kids, these conditions. Looks like the same thing has been happening for years with a family in Fairfield. This is like right outside of Oakland. A mom and a dad, 10 kids. The oldest, 12-year-old, ran away, and when he was brought back to the house, police started investigating the house, and they found what they called, they said that this family was living in squalor, and the kids they're charging the dad with torture. The mom and dad both facing charges. That's the mom. She did an interview where she surprisingly said, people are, you wouldn't, it's not so surprising that she's defending herself, but she's like, their dad was a good dad, and I am a great mother. And she actually said further along in that interview, there's a look at the dad, his name is Mr. Allen, he's 29 years old. She said that she was a good mom, and she felt like she was being judged for wanting to have 10 kids at her age. That was one point she brought out, because that isn't the typical way that people live their lives, she said. But when you're looking at the house, it looks really normal, but on the inside, we know that there's a different story. We're going to toss to that sound to let you hear what the mom had to say. Take a listen to this.
I strive and I thrive myself on being a good parent to my children. My husband has a lot of tattoos. He looks like a scary individual, and that's why people are so quick to judge him, but absolutely not. My husband is an amazing person. I am an amazing mother.
Yeah, she says her husband is an amazing person. She's an amazing mom. She feels like she's defending herself, saying that this wasn't this bad. But investigators say they found puncture wounds to these kids, 10 kids, and they were all living in the same or sleeping in the same bedroom. The mom says they wanted to sleep in the same bedroom, but
the picture that gets me in the video when we showed the feces all over the bathroom floor. And what the mom is coming out and saying is, well, the cops came and raided our place, and I've been so busy because she works full time and an overnight shift. I've been so busy I haven't had time to clean it up. So those are the visuals you are seeing. I'm not personally buying it. I mean, that's disgusting. Feces. I don't care who came in at what time of work I'm coming home. You're cleaning that up. So that's to me not a valid point.
I'm wondering, the oldest kid is 12 years old. There's some responsibility as a chore that you are doing something at home to take care of your home and helping mom out, since you you have 9 other brothers and sisters. So who's really at fault here? Obviously the parents have something to do with it because they found the home in that shape. Right. But
there's a deeper story.
I don't know what else is going on there, because they're all homeschooled, right?
All the kids were homeschooled. Here's another, I've been digging and diving into this story, and there was a relative of the parents who says, I had a conversation with them about, cleaning up their house. So it looks like one of those things, like maybe, from her perspective, because she's not going to just out her relative, maybe they weren't the cleanest people in the world, and maybe the family knew when they visited, it's like, y'all might want to clean this up.
Yeah, almost like a hoarding type situation.
Exactly. So it's an unfortunate situation, but you got to remember at the center of this, there are 10 kids who have injuries to their bodies. And the mom says these are just regular injuries that any child would get. She was like, they're kids. They're going to have bumps and bruises and scrapes. But the puncture wounds that are consistent with the pellet or BB gun, and
they're saying that we know all 10 children were initially taken into protective custody by Solano County Child Welfare Services, but now all been placed in Rogers' sister and mother, which is in the Bay Area. So they are with family this morning. But let us know right here. So Kimberly Morgan says, this story is horrible. I can't even wrap my head around all this. Lisa Bird, my husband and I both work. We have 7 kids together. There was no way in hell our house would ever look like that.
Rasmussen says, looks like my sister's home. DHS did nothing.
Wow.
Oh, my sister is a hoarder. Lets animals like chickens and pigs in her home, says Rasmussen Joe Letha. Janet Piper, welcome back to the conversation. I know she's been away, so I'm sorry you have to come in and join the conversation
right here.
Such a terrible story. But Arthur Gant, yes, it is extremely sad. Now, I want to talk about the Turpins, because we go back to this just a couple of months ago, the Southern California and the city of Paris, the same sort of thing, but they were talking about kids being shackled to beds, and it all came down to one of the older kids running away, getting police, bringing them back and showing what happened, and then later we learned that the Turpin kids were actually able to access the internet and YouTube, and they had created YouTube videos begging a lot of questions. But why do you think that when that story broke, it was this. Everyone had such an intrigue with it. And it seems like with this one, it is even more so at home. It's a local story. There just seems to be less of an interest.
Because you have to understand, there's so many kids.
Yeah.
You know, and kids, they always look up to their mom and dad. So they may end up in this situation to everybody from the outside they say, obviously, why didn't you just get away or tell somebody? But there's so much pressure from kids and their parents that they just get stuck in this situation and they don't realize. It's like the metaphor of the frog in the pot of boiling water. You know, they're in there and the temperature turns up and the frog doesn't realize that the water, it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer until it's too late, until you get into some of these physical signs of abuse. That's what the police are saying. Until you get into clear moments where the parents are not just taking care of the basic things, which is, hoarding is one thing, okay? You can be messy. It's not illegal to be messy. But when you start bringing in animal or human feces, it's a health risk for these kids. And the whole point of having kids is you're trying to lead them on the right path, do the best you can, but you can't allow something like that, something that would promote disease in your house, especially because they have nowhere else to go. If they are homeschooled, then that really is their whole environment and their entire world. So they have no, I guess, reduced outside perspective. Yep. There's a health risk. There's physical injury. And remember, in the whole court and law enforcement system, the last thing that they want to do is get involved with family matters. So the bar has to be extremely high for them to ever enter a home like this, to arrest the parents, to separate the kids from the environment. It looks like they're back with some family members.
They're with family, yeah.
So in order for them to do that, they need to justify every single step of the way, because all families are different, all standards are different, but there's certain benchmarks that they say we cannot look the other way. There's physical harm in their opinion and in their evidence that they've gathered that they said so far, and all these other things. So I think that this resonates with people because they're kids. They're
kids.
innocent
absolutely.
in every single way.
Yeah,
and that is heartbreaking.
A lot of people bringing up kids again. I know we had talked about the top of this that, who the responsibility, like, is it all on the parents? Is it some involved with the kids? Just posing the question, and a lot of people are chiming in saying, don't blame the kids. This is what Stacey Lee Bryson says. Who knows if the feces were some kind of punishment? Jessica May Rodman, this is plain, and she talks about neglect. These poor kids are so mentally scarred, says Teresa Jones-Nichols. And that's not what you're referring to when you said, it's the responsibility of the kids. Heck no.
No. I'm just talking about overall chores.
Curious.
Everyone has chores at different age groups. So I know Bill has chimed in as well as Jessica. I don't want you guys to think that I'm blaming the older kids for not cleaning up the house. But there are different levels of care for your home. When you are a child, when you are a teenager, or your preteens, you should actually be able to help mom or dad with the home while mom and dad are working. And
so
yes,
are you
they
wondering
are
if there
home.
was not some sort of teaching, or like parents aren't doing the right parenting?
But they are at home, so what are they not being taught by their parents? Because they were homeschooled. So maybe they're not learning the whole social aspect and just the overall how to take care of your house and yourself. I don't know the exact story, but I'm sure we're going to find out more about these children in the days to come.
More questions and answers. But I want to bring up for you, Kirsten, Jessica May Rodman says, was there something said about the 12-year-old sleeping under a bush at a neighbor's home? Why was that happening? I know it's something we talked about in the show today.
No, I know that he ran away, so we don't know all of the particulars about that. This is still an active investigation, so there may be, people know about different things that I haven't been able to independently confirm.
Got it.
But I know that the 12-year-old ran away, and then he was brought back home by police, and that is how the police were able to get involved in this situation. So had that 12-year-old never run away, we may not even know about this situation. But I do want to bring up something that the mom, Ina Rogers, I believe is her name, she pointed out, and you heard it in the soundbite, about her husband. She said because her husband looks a certain way, that's why people are coming in and charging him and being harsher. She feels like there's a harsher penalty on him because of the way he looks. I want you to look over there for me just a second. Taking a look at him, she's like, he has tattoos and all of this other stuff. And I gotta admit, I've seen plenty of parents out there with all of the tattoos, whole sleeves up to their neck, happy bouncing kids like at the park. And I don't. What I don't want, sometimes there are issues, especially when it comes to race. And we talked about prejudice yesterday. When you look at someone, you automatically have a prejudice against them. I don't want to cast that on this situation. I don't want to use that excuse when there's a serious situation of child abuse and possibly neglect.
It sounded like her sound after this was very defensive. in my opinion. It was, the house was messy because the police messed it up. They're judging him because of the way that he looks. We're good people. None of this should have happened. Everything's fine. You know, sometimes when you're caught out of your element or in, you know, if you're surprised by something and it may be bad, people tend to be really defensive. Right. You know, like, did you call that person you were supposed to? Of course I did. And you just lied about it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that she's lying. I'm just saying people tend to overreact defensively where everything, like nothing, can she admit nothing is a little bit off here. Everything is something else. So that to me, it just portrays this whole story in a different light.
You're absolutely right. The living in a mess I can deal with, not the feces. I'm not saying that, but you know, I want to know more about these puncture wounds because in my mind, I want a happy family. I want there to be some type of rehabilitation, but I can't even lend myself to that train of thought if these people were really abusing and hurting these children, and if they let them live in a house where there was feces, animal and human feces all over the place.
And
Debbie, can I bring some
Yeah.
comments in really quick? Debbie Carmen says, very disturbing. Please remember the kids live what they learn. Going to your point, Rob. Jessica Downey says, tatted mom with purple hair over here. That's not what I'm judging. This is responding to what the mother of the kids had said in that interview, basically saying everyone's placing blame on him because he has tattoos and assuming things where that's not true. Because again, I have a lot of people in my life as well, family members who have tats the same way you were describing, but I would never assume that they're bad parents, especially because tattoos are so prevalent in society now. I don't think that's what people do. Oh, tattoos must be a bad person.
But I do think that there is the prejudice that goes along with when you see someone with a lot of tattoos. I think people automatically put that person in a category, and I think that's an error to your error. If you see someone with tattoos, you automatically put them in the box. That's to your error.
But you're saying because of the puncture wounds, now it's been taken to a whole nother level, of course.
And, you know, with the homeschool situation, because that's the one thing that sort of binds these two stories together in a way. It's California, it's a very large family, and also homeschooled. So we're, you know, as news people, we're trying to, you know, find the thread because we know all the details of these stories. And maybe there is some connection, not between these two families, but in, like, where was their steps missed? Yeah, how did it get to this point in the way? And I'll just tell you, you've got family that works for schools.
Yep.
My mom was a principal. If any kid shows up and there's unexplained injuries, they have to report it. It's not an option of let me bring in mom and dad or the guardians and try and figure this out.
It's an interview with the kids. There's a whole law based around that.
Yeah, exactly, because they are witnesses to a potential crime and they need to get involved immediately. So unfortunately, because the kids were homeschooled, this is not me saying anything about homeschooling, it's just unfortunately for the kids, there were not extra eyes to observe some of these things that were unexplained, then someone could have stepped in earlier and at least asked those questions, at least gotten closer to what was really going on in the house.
You're absolutely right.
No, it's very true because a lot of these kids, and you talk about any school district here in the state of California, from my understanding, they have food pantries. They have ways in which that if you come to the school and all you have to say are the words are, you know, I am homeless or I do not have a home. It's the responsibility of the schools and of the district to take care of the kid as best they can, offer them the resources. And so, like you're saying, it is much easier for these families to let me homeschool, whatever, and I put it in quotes because who was holding these families accountable in two situations? Not only were the kids clearly, and this is an assumption, not only were they not learning, but they're living in an abusive type of way. And for that, it's like, what is being done at that level of homeschooling? And
maybe that's just the thread that goes forward is there enough supervision of kids being homeschooled? Because it is the parents' right. If they don't want to educate their kid in this public school system, they don't have to. That's their right. And that needs to be protected because that's the way it's set up in the United States. However, it just reduces the interaction with these kids and the general public, and for things that may be going on that the kids don't know is bad. That they have. Where else are they going to turn?
I have friends who have kids who homeschool, and you know, my kids are probably going to go to public school. Shout out to all public schools because I'm a product of public schools.
Me too.
But they're probably going to go to public schools. But my friends who have kids that homeschool, they have this idea behind it. It was like, you know, we're in charge of the education, and I think it's for religious reasons, and that's awesome. But they also find ways to make sure their kids are active and social because when you are homeschooled, you're missing that social component. And I'm thinking about it for myself when I raise my future family. It's like, no, I want my kids to have that. But then again, I will put myself up for, you know, if my kid come in with bruises and bumps and stuff like that, Ask me questions because I'm gonna be able to explain
Well,
mine.
right. Jessica May Rodman says that puts you in a catch-22. There's so much that scares me every day to send my kids to school, but there is a stigma that goes with homeschooling. Jessica Downey says if there wasn't that report on record, they would have placed me back into my stepdad's care. And she's talking about an incident in a couple comments down where she says a teacher reporting a black eye when she was 8 is what ultimately saved her life.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why it's mandated, because you can't put the judgment call in front of teachers, and it's other people too. It's law enforcement, it's teachers, it's principals. There's certain people that they mandatory have to report because they can't figure out the nuances of what's going on. They just need to take it to the next level.
I think that's when it becomes incumbent upon neighbors. Sometimes, you see something, you say something. That is why this is really important. Hopefully, there's 10 kids. They have to go outside at some point. So, be mindful of your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors. A lot of times you live in a place, and I'm from the South, so I speak to my neighbors all the time. And they might think I'm a weirdo, but I'm like, hey, girl, hey, I know you're a dog. I recognize all of this stuff. That's because I want to know my neighbor in case I need help. My neighbor's like, I haven't seen her walking out of her apartment in 2 days. Let me check on my neighbor or something like that so that we can make sure and be our brother's keeper. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, and to what Michelle was just saying, but do the neighbors, even after hearing about the Turpin case down in SoCal a couple of months ago?
Do they go outside in the front yard, let alone the backyard?
Yeah, we don't know. And are we being better neighbors, since that Turpin case? In both cases, and this is what Mandy Wright says, both cases talking about this Fairfield one and the one down in Paris and SoCal, both cases a child around 12 or 13 fled the home. If not, these kids, their siblings, would still be in filth and abuse. So
You're right.
It's in both cases have been up to young adults having to flee the situation in order to get some sort of help, which is terribly sad.
And now, like with the Turpin children, we think about what is life going to be like for them because they don't know anything else but abuse and living in these conditions. Just like with these kids, the Rogers children, they don't know anything but this. So it'll be interesting to see how their perspective on life and going forward, how do they move forward? But we're looking again at the exterior of this home, and you see family pictures and things like that. It's so sad that you have no idea what's going on behind closed doors.
And I believe someone said that maybe the family members were making comments about were they being clean and healthy and things like that, and that nothing was done. So imagine that barrier. I mean, this is you're basically turning the authorities onto your own family.
But you have to do that. We have to stop letting people get a pass. I think that is one issue that affects minority community so much. It was like, we know that people commit crimes. Tell on them so that we can stop that and we can help these kids. Like if my sister or any relative of mine has a child that I believe for a second is being abused or in harm's way for a second, I'm finna snitch. I'm calling the police because you shouldn't do that to that baby.
Right, and you can't help some of these people, that the parents getting in this situation. You can't help them. Maybe you've tried talking to them. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, I'll get around to it, or who knows what's going on. But you can help those kids.
Yes.
Because they're
do
victims.
it for the kids.
Kimberly, can we read some of the last ones before we get to the next topic? Kimberly Morgan says, even people with big families like ours, because we know that she has, I think, 6 daughters, correct me if I'm wrong, we've gotten rude comments and questions from people asking us, how do we even have time to give attention to each of our children?
That speaks to the judgment when people see the big families. It's like
they
not what
assume
it's
you
about.
can't handle it.
Exactly.
In this case, clearly, this mother and father weren't able to. But in Kimberly's case, I know that you're very vigilant when it comes to your kids in your home, your participation in conversations. Lori Nelson says, "Who's doing the homeschool teaching?" The mother said she works full time.
Yeah, who
I
is
would
doing
imagine homeschooling that many kids would be a full-time job in itself. I had the same question. Someone said she works the overnight shift.
So when is
she's
she
able
getting a moment to relax and close her eyes and having a moment to
study
herself?
up on the knowledge to teach the different age groups of these kids.
Big age range.
Now, we don't want to beat up on homeschooling because that is a perspective. It's a personal educational choice that every parent has the right to. And I'm sure I've seen when this girlfriend right here works on TV every day looking as beautiful as she can with that belly. And to my perspective, I'm like, girl, how do you do it? I have no idea. So I can't walk into your shoes until you're in someone's or in someone's shoes. You don't really know, so you shouldn't judge. So shout out to all the homeschool kids out there because there are kids that are doing it.
Student athletes.
And they're making it happen, and these are bright, independent children who are completely healthy. This particular situation is just going to shine a light on all of the negative.
And another thing too, it bears worth saying, this Fairfield is not a cheap city. It's right next to the Bay Area. It's a bedroom community. It's expensive. So whatever they're paying for housing is going to be a lot, whether it's rent or own. and then you've got 10 kids to take care of. That's expensive. So you have to be working in order to do this. So then your resource is the public school system at that point, even if you're opposed to it at that point, to help yourself out time-wise. To try and take some of the burden off of you. You know, the public, you pay for it.
Yeah.
It's there.
You're already paying for it.
But maybe when you hear about what the police are alleging about signs of abuse, that maybe that was the barrier of that was how discipline went down in that family, and they knew if they brought him to school, then that would get called in. There's a lot of different ways that this is going to go at, and of course, we are all going to learn about the facts.
Yes, and the why, right? Everyone wants to know the why.
up.
What was why was this happening? Why was this happening? So we'll continue to ask the questions and dig deeper for all of you, but I want to... Thanks for watching us here on the ABC 10 Information Network. If you want to see more stories just like this one, click subscribe.